The stars belong to everyone now. At least that was what humanity believed when they joined the Galactic Council 47 years ago. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Endeavor's Hope, watching those same stars through the viewport, and wondered if that belief had been naive. "Captain, we're receiving another transmission from the Korath fleet," her communications officer said. Lieutenant Park's voice carried a tension that had been building for days. Elena straightened her uniform. "Put it through." The face that appeared on the screen was reptilian, with golden eyes that held nothing but contempt. Commander Zekthal of the Korath Dominion had made his position clear 3 times already, but apparently he enjoyed repeating himself. "Human vessel, you continue to orbit this world against our directive. This system belongs to the Korath Dominion by right of elder species priority. You have 27 days remaining to remove your colony." Elena kept her voice steady. "Commander, as I've explained, New Havana has been a registered human colony for 11 years. 4 million people call this place home. We have legal settlement rights under council law." Zekthal's mouth opened in what might have been a laugh. The sound was harsh, like rocks grinding together. "Council law favors elder species, Captain. Your people are children in the galaxy. 47 years. The Korath have sailed between stars for 15,000 years. We do not move aside for infants." The transmission ended before Elena could respond. She turned to her crew, seeing her own frustration reflected in their faces. The bridge crew of the Endeavor's Hope was small, only 23 people, but they had been together for 5 years. They were researchers, scientists, and explorers. None of them had ever expected to face something like this. "How many people have evacuated?" Elena asked. 3 million are already en route to the nearest human worlds, Park replied, but there are still over 1 million planetside. Many of them are elderly or sick. Some just refuse to leave. They built lives here, Captain. They have farms, businesses, families buried in the ground." Elena nodded. She understood. New Havana wasn't just a colony. It was home. The people below had spent a decade terraforming a dead rock into a living world. They had planted trees that were just beginning to bear fruit. Children had been born here who had never seen Earth. "What's our status with the fleet?" she asked. 4 more ships have arrived. The Perseverance, New Dawn, Hope's Light, and the Galileo. All research and transport vessels like us. No military ships in range. Park paused. "Captain, we're not warships. If the Korath decide to force the issue—" "I know," Elena said quietly. "But we can't just abandon them." Across the galaxy, in the great chamber of the Galactic Council, Ambassador Marcus Chen stood before 247 species and felt completely alone. The council chamber was a massive structure, built to accommodate every size and shape of intelligent life the galaxy had produced. Species that breathed methane sat in sealed chambers. Others that lived in water tanks gestured with tentacles. Some were so small they needed amplification devices to be heard. Others were so large they appeared via hologram to avoid crushing the smaller delegates. Marcus had been Earth's ambassador for 6 years. In that time, he had learned to navigate the complex politics of galactic civilization. He had made friends among some of the younger species and had earned grudging respect from a few of the elder ones. But today none of that mattered. "The human petition is denied," Counselor Vexthrax announced. The Vex Collective representative was a being of pure energy, contained within a crystalline structure. Its voice resonated in everyone's mind rather than through the air. "The Korath claim is valid under elder species priority protocols, but our people were there first," Marcus said, trying to keep desperation from his voice. "We followed every law, every protocol. We registered our claim, paid all fees, and completed the terraforming survey. New Havana is a legal colony under every definition of council law. Except one," said High Counselor Raltham of the Salthene Empire. The Salthene looked almost human, which made their coldness even more disturbing. "Elder species priority supersedes settlement claims when strategic resources are involved. The Korath have identified significant deposits of Zerathium in that system. Such resources are too valuable to leave in the hands of newer species." Marcus felt his hands clench into fists. He forced them to relax. Showing anger would only confirm what the elder species already believed about humans, that they were too emotional, too volatile, too young for the responsibility of galactic civilization. "We're talking about 4 million lives," he said carefully. "People who have made this world their home, families, children. You're asking us to uproot all of them because of some mining rights?" "We are asking nothing," Zekthal said. The Korath commander had been given the right to address the council directly. "We are telling. Your people will leave or they will be removed. This is not a negotiation." The chamber filled with murmurs. Some species expressed discomfort, but none spoke in humanity's defense. The elder species had made their position clear, and the younger ones would not risk their own standing by opposing them. "I move to vote," Vexthrax said. The vote was quick. 231 species voted in favor of the Korath claim. Only 16 voted with humanity, mostly younger species who remembered their own struggles with the elder races. Marcus stood frozen as the council chamber emptied. A few ambassadors offered sympathetic looks as they passed, but sympathy changed nothing. Back on New Havana, Elena watched as the last transport ships lifted from the surface. Most of the colony had evacuated, but over 1 million remained. Some were too sick to travel. Others simply refused to leave their homes. An entire farming community in the Northern Hemisphere had sent a message saying they would rather die on their own land than become refugees. Elena understood their choice, even if she disagreed with it. She had sent her own crew away on the last transport, keeping only a skeleton staff of volunteers. 5 other human ships remained in orbit with her: the Perseverance, New Dawn, Hope's Light, Galileo, and Tomorrow's Promise. 6 ships total, carrying fewer than 3,000 crew between them. They were research vessels and transports. They had basic defensive shields and some emergency weapons, but nothing that could stand against a Korath war fleet. Everyone knew it, but they stayed anyway, because someone had to stand between the Korath and the people below. On the 3rd day of the standoff, the Korath fleet arrived. Elena counted the ships as they dropped out of faster-than-light travel. 20 warships, each one 10 times the size of the Endeavor's Hope. They were built for war, bristling with weapons and armor. They made the human vessels look like toys. "They're hailing us," Park said. Elena took a breath. On screen, Zekthal appeared again, but this time his contempt had been replaced with something else. Amusement. Captain Vasquez. "You have positioned your ships between our fleet and the planet. This is foolish. Move aside or be moved." "We're on a humanitarian mission," Elena said. "Protecting civilians during an evacuation. That's legal under council law. Your evacuation period has ended. The civilians below are now trespassers on Korath territory. Final warning, Captain. Move your ships or we will remove them. You are not warriors. You are scientists playing at being heroes. Do not die for people who were foolish enough to defy the council." Elena looked at the faces of her bridge crew. They were afraid, she could see it in their eyes, but not one of them suggested retreat. "We're staying," she said. Zekthal's amusement faded. "Then you will die. Humanity is too soft for the galaxy, Captain. This is why you will never matter. This is why you will always be beneath us." The transmission ended. For 30 seconds nothing happened. Elena had time to think about Earth, about her sister's children who she would never see again, about all the places among the stars she had hoped to explore. Then the Korath opened fire, and the universe became light and pain and screaming metal, and Captain Elena Vasquez had just enough time to realize that everything was about to change. The Endeavor's Hope died first. Elena felt the ship shudder as the Korath weapons tore through the shields like paper. Fire erupted across the bridge. She heard screaming, smelled burning metal, and something worse. Lieutenant Park was thrown across the room, his body hitting the wall with a sound that Elena would never forget. "Return fire," she shouted. But half her crew was already dead or dying. The ship's emergency weapons managed 3 shots before another blast hit the reactor. Elena had just enough time to reach for the evacuation alarm before the world turned white. The Perseverance lasted 40 seconds longer. The New Dawn managed to damage one Korath ship before it was cut in half by focused beam fire. The Hope's Light tried to run to get a message out, but the Korath caught it before it could jump to faster-than-light speed. The Galileo and Tomorrow's Promise died together, their wreckage raining down toward New Havana like falling stars. In less than 8 minutes, 6 human ships were destroyed. 2,847 crew members died. The few escape pods that launched were targeted and destroyed. The Korath left no survivors. Then they turned their weapons on the planet below. The bombardment started in the Northern Hemisphere, where the farming communities had refused to leave. Kinetic weapons fell from orbit, hitting the ground with the force of nuclear explosions. Entire valleys vanished in seconds. Towns that had taken years to build simply ceased to exist. In the capital city of New Havana, people ran through the streets. Alarms blared. Parents grabbed their children. The elderly, who had been too sick to evacuate earlier, stumbled from their homes, finally understanding that this was real, that the Korath were actually doing this. But there was nowhere to run. The evacuation ships were gone. The human fleet that had tried to protect them was debris in orbit. There were only the shelters, built deep underground for emergencies. Hundreds of thousands of people crowded into them, holding each other, praying to gods across a dozen different faiths. The Korath weapons found the shelters anyway. Bunker-buster munitions that could penetrate miles of rock. The shelters became tombs. The bombardment lasted 6 hours. When it ended, New Havana was silent. The farms were craters. The cities were rubble. The forests that had been so carefully planted were burning. And 1,247,891 people were dead. 340,000 of them were children. The Korath fleet remained in orbit for another day, scanning the surface to ensure no human presence remained. Then they left to begin their mining operations, satisfied that the problem had been solved. Across the galaxy, news of the massacre spread. Galactic news networks showed footage of the attack. Some species expressed shock. Others called it tragic but necessary. The Korath celebrated their decisive action against human defiance. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session 2 days after the bombardment. Marcus Chen stood in the same chamber where he had begged for help, and listened as the elder species discussed what had happened. "The loss of life is regrettable," Councillor Vexthrax said. "However, the humans were warned. They had time to evacuate. Those who remained chose to defy a lawful council decision." "Lawful?" Marcus said. His voice was quiet, but it cut through the chamber like a knife. "You call genocide lawful?" "It was not genocide," Raltham said coldly. "It was enforcement of council authority. Your people refused to comply with a direct order from an elder species. There are consequences for such defiance." "Captain Vasquez and her crew were there on a humanitarian mission," Marcus said. "They were unarmed research vessels. They were protecting civilians. And you're saying the Korath had the right to murder them?" "They should have moved aside," Zekthal said. He sat in his seat looking proud, not ashamed. "We gave warning. They chose to die. As for the colonists, they were illegally occupying Korath territory after the evacuation deadline. This is war, Ambassador. Perhaps humanity is too young to understand such things." Marcus looked around the chamber. He saw discomfort on some faces, but not outrage. Not anger, just the same cold calculation that had allowed this to happen in the first place. The elder species cared about order and hierarchy. The younger species were too afraid to object. And humanity was alone. "An unfortunate but legal enforcement action," the Council's official statement said. The words made Marcus want to scream. Instead, he stood perfectly still, memorizing every face in that chamber. Every species that stayed silent, every delegate who chose politics over justice. "I'm recalling myself to Earth," Marcus said finally. "My government will need to hear a full report." "Of course," Vexthrax said. "We understand this is difficult for your people. Perhaps in time, humans will learn the realities of galactic civilization. Not all species are suited for expansion. Some are better served by remaining close to their homeworld where their emotional nature can be managed." Marcus turned and walked out. Behind him he heard Zekthal laugh. It was the same grinding sound as before, but now it echoed in his mind like a promise. Earth was silent. For 2 days after Marcus arrived home, the government said nothing. No statements, no press conferences. The president met with military leaders and scientists. Parliament convened in closed session. The normally busy streets of major cities were quieter than anyone could remember. People watched the footage from New Havana over and over. The ships being destroyed, the bombardment, the empty ruins. They saw the bodies of Captain Elena Vasquez and her crew, recovered from wreckage by a Vex salvage team and sent back to Earth as a courtesy. They saw the lists of names. The dead, the children who would never grow up. And something changed in humanity. In Geneva, Prime Minister Ayana Okafor stood before the global parliament and the leaders of every nation on Earth. Behind her, screens showed the faces of the dead. Thousands of them, hundreds of thousands. "We came to the stars believing in peace," she said. Her voice was steady, but her eyes held something cold. "We joined the Galactic Council believing in law and order. We disarmed our warships and focused on exploration and science because we thought we had evolved past our violent history." She paused, looking at the faces before her. "We were wrong. Not about ourselves. We did evolve. We did become better. But we forgot that the rest of the galaxy had not." On the screens behind her, new images appeared. Ancient images from Earth's history. World wars, genocides, the capacity for organized violence that had nearly destroyed humanity in its youth. "We put aside these weapons and these ways because we chose peace," Ayana continued. "The galaxy saw our choice as weakness. They called us soft. They called us children. They called us too emotional to matter. And when we asked them to respect our people's lives, they laughed and killed over 1 million of us." The Parliament was absolutely silent. Every person in that room had lost someone on New Havana. Family, friends, colleagues. The dead were not numbers to them. They were real people with names and faces and dreams. "The Korath believe they taught us a lesson," Ayana said. "They believe they showed us our place in the galactic order. They believe we will retreat to Earth and hide like frightened children." She leaned forward, and her voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "They are wrong." The screens changed again, showing shipyards across Earth and the remaining colonies. Factories that had been idle for decades. Industrial complexes that had been converted to peaceful purposes. All of them were now running at full capacity. "We tried their way," Ayana said. "We were civilized. We were diplomatic. We followed their rules. And they slaughtered our children. So now we will remind the galaxy of something they should have learned before they touched us." Her eyes were hard as diamonds. "Humanity chose peace. That means we know war. We know it very well. We learned it in blood and fire and the ashes of our own cities. We spent 200 years learning how to be better, how to control the monster inside us." She looked directly at the camera that was broadcasting this across Earth, and to the few human ships still in galactic space. "The galaxy has awakened that monster. May their gods forgive them, because we will not." The next 6 months changed humanity in ways the galaxy could not have imagined. While the Korath celebrated their victory and began mining operations in the New Havana system, something else was happening on Earth and its remaining colonies. Every human felt it. From the oldest grandmother on Mars to the youngest child in the Europa domes. It was not spoken about in public, not at first. But in private conversations, in the looks people exchanged, in the way they carried themselves, something fundamental had shifted. The grief was still there. The pain of losing New Havana would never truly heal. But underneath the grief was something colder. Something that had been sleeping for 2 centuries since humanity had finally achieved global peace and turned its eyes to the stars. Dr. Sarah Kessler had been a civilian scientist before New Havana. She studied propulsion systems and spent her days designing faster engines for exploration vessels. Her husband had been a botanist on New Havana. Her daughter had just turned 6 before the bombardment. Now Sarah wore an admiral's uniform and stood in a command center deep beneath the Pacific Ocean. Around her, holographic displays showed the progress of humanity's transformation. Every major corporation had shifted production. Every scientist had redirected their research. Every engineer was building something new. "Report," Sarah said. Her voice had lost its warmth 6 months ago. Some of her colleagues said she never smiled anymore. They were right. Commander James Park stepped forward. He was one of the few who had survived New Havana. He had been on a supply run when the attack happened. He had watched on scanners as his ship, the Perseverance, was destroyed, as his captain and friends died. Now he was one of Sarah's chief tactical officers. "The shipyards are ahead of schedule," James said. "We've completed 57 vessels of the new design. Another 120 are in various stages of construction. The Mars facilities alone are producing 1 ship every 3 days." Sarah nodded. On the displays, images of the new ships rotated slowly. They looked nothing like the exploration vessels humanity had built before. These were sleek and black, covered in angles designed to scatter sensor beams. They bristled with weapons that Earth's military-industrial complex had designed in secret over the past months. "What about the weapon systems?" Sarah asked. "All tests successful," another officer replied. "The railguns can punch through standard Korath shielding. The drone swarms are operational. The cyber warfare packages are ready for deployment, and the new engines can outrun anything the elder species have in service." Sarah allowed herself a thin smile. "The Korath think we're hiding. They think we're broken. Intelligence reports confirm it, James said. The Korath have expanded further into our former territory. They've occupied 3 more systems. They're not even posting heavy guards. They don't think we're a threat. Good, Sarah said. Let them think that. How many pilots do we have trained? 20,000 and growing. Every simulation shows we're ready, Admiral. Sarah looked at the star map on the main display. Red dots showed Korath positions. Blue dots showed human ships. For 6 months, those blue dots had been scattered and hiding. Now they were beginning to group together in dark space, in the areas between stars where no one traveled. It's time, Sarah said quietly. Send the signal to all battle groups. Operation Reckoning begins at 0600 tomorrow. That night in the rebuilt council chambers, the Galactic Council met for a routine session. Marcus Chen's replacement, Ambassador Li Wei, attended via hologram. Earth had sent a new representative, but humanity's voice was quiet now. They voted on trade agreements and border disputes, but said little else. Zekthal sat in his seat, bored by the proceedings. The human issue had been resolved months ago. His people were prospering from the new resources. Some of the younger species had whispered about justice and murder, but none dared speak loudly enough to matter. The elder species had shown their power and order was maintained. We should discuss the human situation, Councillor Raltham said, surprising everyone. They have withdrawn from most galactic affairs. They have closed their borders. This isolation is concerning. Let them sulk, Zekthal said dismissively. They learned their place. In time they will return more compliant and less troublesome. Young species always need correction. Nevertheless, Vexthrak said, perhaps we should send a diplomatic mission to ensure they are not planning anything unwise. The council debated for an hour. They decided to send a small delegation to Earth in 3 weeks. It was a minor item on the agenda, barely worth discussing. The humans were no threat. They were scientists and explorers, not warriors. If the council had been paying attention, they might have noticed that Ambassador Li Wei's hologram smiled when they made that decision. It was not a pleasant smile. In the Epsilon sector at the edge of Korath territory, Patrol Group 7 consisted of 47 warships. They were on routine patrol, checking the outer systems for pirates or smugglers. Captain Takvar commanded the group from his flagship. He had served the Korath for 30 years and had fought in the last war against the Relvax. He was experienced and confident. Sir, we're detecting unusual readings, his sensor officer reported. Electromagnetic anomalies in grid 773. Investigate, Takvar ordered. Probably just solar interference. The patrol group changed course to investigate. As they approached the coordinates, the anomalies increased. Strange energy readings, distortions in space that didn't match any known natural phenomena. Sir, I'm reading. The sensor officer began, then stopped. His face went pale. Contact. Multiple contacts. Unknown vessels emerging from dark space. On the main screen, ships appeared. They were black as the void itself, barely visible even when directly illuminated. The sensors struggled to track them. Their engine signatures were strange, unfamiliar. How many? Takvar demanded. I count 50. No, wait. More appearing. They're everywhere. Takvar felt his first flicker of concern. Identify them. Who are they? Unable to identify, sir. They don't match any known designs in our database. Wait. I'm picking up a hail. Audio only. Put it through. A human voice filled the bridge. It was female, cold, completely devoid of emotion. Korath vessels. This is Admiral Sarah Kessler of the Human Defense Fleet. You are in violation of human sovereignty. Power down your weapons and prepare to be destroyed. Takvar almost laughed. Humans? These ships belong to the humans? Impossible. Humanity had been crushed 6 months ago. They were weak, their military insignificant. This had to be some kind of trick. This is Captain Takvar of the Korath Dominion. I don't know what game you're playing, but you're outnumbered. We have 47 warships. You have 50. Those are poor odds for starting a conflict you cannot win. There was a pause. When the human spoke again, Takvar heard something in her voice that made his blood run cold. It was not anger. It was worse. It was certainty. You're wrong on several counts, Captain. First, you're not outnumbered. We have 317 ships in this sector alone. Second, these are not poor odds. Third, this is not a conflict. A conflict implies you have a chance? The voice paused. You killed our children, Captain. You killed Captain Elena Vasquez and her crew. You murdered over 1 million civilians. Did you think there would be no accounting for that? Tokvar's sensors suddenly cleared and he saw the truth. The 50 ships were decoys. Behind them, around them, above and below, hundreds of human vessels appeared as their stealth systems deactivated. His entire patrol group was surrounded. This is a mistake, Tokvar said, trying to keep his voice steady. The Council authorized our actions on New Havana. We were following established law. You cannot— The Council, Admiral Kessler interrupted, is not here. They cannot protect you. They cannot save you. You are alone with us now, and we remember everything. Tokvar opened his mouth to speak, to negotiate, to surrender if necessary, but the humans did not give him the chance. The black ships opened fire all at once, and Patrol Group 7 ceased to exist. The battle lasted 7 minutes. Of 47 Korath warships, 0 survived. 0 escape pods were recovered. The humans jammed all communication, so no distress signals escaped. When it was over, the human fleet vanished back into dark space as silently as they had appeared. It was 3 days before the Korath High Command realized Patrol Group 7 was missing. They sent another patrol to investigate. That patrol found nothing but debris and silence. And floating among the wreckage, they found a single black cube, a memorial marker, identical to the one Marcus Chen had left on the council floor months ago. Inside the cube was a message. Just 2 words repeated over and over in every language the galaxy spoke. We remember. 1 week later, another Korath fleet vanished. 63 ships gone without a trace. Then another. Then another. In 30 days, the Korath lost over 200 warships. They tried to fight back, tried to track the human vessels, but it was like fighting shadows. The humans appeared without warning, destroyed everything, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. The Battle of Kessler's Void changed everything. The Korath High Command had finally assembled a proper response force. 300 warships, the largest battle group they could gather without leaving their core worlds undefended. Admiral Vorhash commanded the fleet personally. He was the greatest military mind the Korath had produced in 5 generations. They cannot hide forever, Vorhash said to his officers, as the fleet moved through the void between stars. These humans think they are clever, but we have fought wars for 15,000 years. We will find them, crush them, and remind the galaxy why the Korath are an elder species. His fleet spread out in a search pattern, scanning every cubic meter of space. For 2 days they found nothing. Then on the 3rd day their sensors detected something, a fleet of human ships sitting in open space as if waiting for them. 50 vessels, the tactical officer reported. Standard formation. They're not even trying to hide. Vorhash studied the display. Something felt wrong. Why would the humans show themselves now? After weeks of ambush tactics, why would they face a Korath fleet 6 times their size in open battle? It's a trap, he said. Scan for additional contacts. They have more ships hidden somewhere. The fleet spent an hour scanning. They found nothing but empty space and the 50 human vessels. No hidden fleets. No ambush waiting. Just 50 ships against 300. Perhaps they're offering surrender, one officer suggested. Or perhaps they're simply fools. Vorhash didn't believe it, but he couldn't find the trap. Battle formation. We'll engage from maximum range. If they try to run, pursue with hunter groups, and keep scanning. I want to know the second any other ships appear. The Korath fleet moved forward. The human ships did not run. They held position, waiting. As the range closed to firing distance, the Korath received a transmission. Korath fleet, this is Admiral Sarah Kessler. You came looking for us. Here we are, Vorhash recognized the name. The human admiral who had been destroying his patrols. The scientist who had lost her family on New Havana. He had read the intelligence reports about her. The report said she was brilliant but unstable with grief. That she was taking foolish risks. Admiral Kessler, you are outnumbered 6 to 1, Vorhash said. You cannot win this battle. Surrender your fleet and your crews will be treated according to council law. There was a long pause. When Kessler spoke again, her voice was quiet but clear. You killed my daughter. You killed my husband. You killed Elena Vasquez and her crew who were trying to save lives. You killed over 1 million civilians who just wanted to live in peace. And now you offer us the protection of council law? That was war, Vorhash said. This doesn't have to be. Surrender and no more humans need to die today. You're right, Kessler said. No more humans need to die today. There was another pause. But you do. The human ships opened fire. But they did not fire conventional weapons. What emerged from the human vessels looked like swarms of insects, thousands of small objects that filled the space between the fleets. The Korath point defenses tried to shoot them down, but there were too many. Drone swarms, each one carrying enough explosive force to damage a warship. They swarmed over the Korath vessels like ants on a carcass, detonating against shields and armor. The shields held at first, but the drones kept coming. Hundreds of them, thousands. Return fire, Vorhash ordered. Target their ships directly! The Korath weapons fired, massive energy beams that could vaporize a small moon. But the human ships moved like nothing Vorhash had ever seen. They dodged and weaved, their engines somehow allowing them to change direction in ways that should have torn the ships apart. The few shots that connected were absorbed by shields that were far stronger than intelligence had reported. Then the human ships fired their main weapons, railguns, accelerating solid projectiles to a fraction of light speed. The projectiles hit the Korath shields and punched straight through them as if they weren't there. Ships began to die, their armor pierced, their reactors breached. What kind of weapons are these? An officer shouted. Our shields should stop kinetic weapons. Redirect power to shields, Vorhash ordered, but it was too late. The human tactics were too coordinated, too precise. They fought like a single organism, each ship knowing exactly where the others would be, supporting each other with perfect timing. And then the cyber attack began. Korath ships started reporting system failures, navigation errors, weapon systems turning on their own vessels. It took Vorhash a moment to understand. The humans were hacking them. Somehow they were breaking through Korath military encryption and taking control of systems. Shut down all network connections, he ordered.
Fight each ship independently.
But the damage was done. 12 Korath ships had already fired on their own fleet. The formation was in chaos. The drones were still coming. The railguns were still firing. And the human ships were still moving, untouchable, like dancers in a deadly ballet. Vorhash watched his fleet die. Ships that had served the Korath for decades, crewed by soldiers who had trained their entire lives for war. They were being destroyed by a species that the galaxy had called soft, by people who were supposed to be scientists and explorers. All ships retreat, he finally ordered. Jump to faster-than-light scatter formation. We need to regroup and— Negative, Kessler's voice cut through the channel. We're not done. Vorhash's sensors showed something new. The space around his fleet was filled with strange energy readings. Jump inhibitors. The humans had somehow created a field that prevented faster-than-light travel. His ships were trapped. You wanted to find us, Kessler said. You wanted to fight us. You wanted to show us our place in the galaxy, so we're showing you something instead. We're showing you what happens when you push the peaceful species too far. We're showing you what happens when you forget that we chose peace, that we weren't born to it, that we learned it through fire and blood and the ashes of our own wars. The battle continued. It was not a battle, really. It was an execution. The Korath tried to fight, tried to defend themselves, but the humans had planned for everything. Every tactic the Korath used had a counter. Every weapon they fired was neutralized or avoided. It was as if the humans had studied every war the Korath had ever fought and had designed their entire battle strategy around defeating them specifically. After 2 hours, it was over. Of 300 Korath warships, 0 remained functional. The humans had not taken a single prisoner. They had not accepted a single surrender. They had simply destroyed every ship, every escape pod, every life raft. Admiral Vorhash's flagship was the last to die. As his ship broke apart around him, he finally understood. The humans were not fighting a war. They were not trying to win territory or resources. They were sending a message written in fire and death and screaming metal. His last thought, as the void took him, was that the galaxy had made a terrible mistake. The footage of the battle spread across the galaxy faster than anything in history. Every species watched in horror as the Korath fleet was destroyed. The humans had not hidden their tactics. They had broadcast the entire battle, wanting everyone to see, wanting everyone to understand. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The chamber that had once been filled with confident voices was now silent with shock. The elder species who had ruled the galaxy for millennia suddenly looked old and afraid. They destroyed 300 warships, Counselor Vex Thrak said. The energy being's usual calm was gone, replaced by something close to panic. 300 of our best vessels. And the humans lost 4 ships. 4. Only 4 were damaged and they lost 0 crew. They're using weapons we've never seen before, Raltham added. The Salthian counselor looked haunted. Technology that should not exist. How did they develop all this in just 6 months? The truth was simple but terrifying. Humanity had not developed the technology in 6 months. They had always had the capacity for it. They had just chosen not to build weapons of war. When they joined the galactic community, they had disarmed. They had focused on exploration and science. Not because they couldn't build weapons, but because they didn't want to. The Korath had made them want to. Ambassador Li Wei appeared via hologram. He looked tired but determined. Around the galaxy, humans were all experiencing the same thing. The grief was still there, but alongside it was a grim satisfaction. Justice was being served. The council must intervene, Zekthal said. He no longer sounded proud or amused. He sounded desperate. This cannot continue. The humans must be stopped before what? Liwi interrupted. Before they do to you what you did to New Havana. Before they kill your civilians? Your children? His voice was cold. Do not worry, counselor. We are not like you. We will not murder innocents. We will not bombard your worlds. We will not punish the Korath people for the crimes of their leaders. Then what do you want? Vexthrax demanded. What will end this? Liwei smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. What we want is simple: justice, accountability, and a guarantee that what happened to New Havana will never happen again to any species. The council will agree to negotiations, Raltham said quickly. We will discuss terms. There can be reparations, treaties. No, Liwei said quietly. No negotiations, not yet. First, there is one more thing that must happen. What? Zekthal asked, though something in his voice suggested he already knew the answer. Korath Prime had been the center of their empire for 15,000 years. It was a world of gleaming cities and ancient monuments, home to 14 billion Korath citizens. It had never been threatened in living memory. The Korath had always been the conquerors, never the conquered. Now every citizen watched the sky with fear. The news channel showed the approach of the human fleet. 700 warships moving in perfect formation. They had already destroyed every Korath military installation between the frontier and the homeworld. Now they were here, in orbit around Korath Prime itself. Grand Admiral Zakthorn stood in the Planetary Defense Center, watching his world hang in the balance. He had 60 warships left, 60 against 700. Every simulation showed the same result. If the humans attacked, Korath Prime would fall in less than 4 hours. The evacuation is not going well, his second-in-command reported. The people are panicking. The transport ships are overloaded. We have 14 billion people and no time to move them all. Zakthorn nodded slowly. He understood now what Captain Vasquez had faced. The impossible choice. The weight of lives that could not be saved. He had read the reports of New Havana. He had dismissed them as exaggeration. Now he lived them. Continue the evacuation, he said. Save as many as possible. On the human flagship Remembrance, Admiral Sarah Kessler stood on the bridge and looked at the world below. 14 billion lives. She could destroy them all with a single order. The weapons were ready. The fleet was in position. She had the power of death at her fingertips. Her daughter's face appeared in her mind, smiling, laughing, running through the gardens on New Havana. 6 years old. She had loved flowers. The Korath had turned her into ash. Admiral, Commander Park said quietly, the Korath are broadcasting a message. They're asking to speak with you. Sarah nodded. Put it through. The face that appeared on the screen was not Zekthal. It was an older Korath, his scales gray with age. Grand Admiral Zakthorn, the defender of Korath Prime. He looked tired. Admiral Kessler, he said. I am Grand Admiral Zakthorn. I command the defense of this world. I know who you are, Sarah said. Then you know that I cannot stop you. Zakthorn continued. If you attack, my people will die. Billions of them. Civilians, children. Innocent lives who had nothing to do with what happened on New Havana. He paused. Is that what you want? To become what we were? Sarah felt rage rise in her chest. Your people killed my family. Your commander laughed about it. Your leaders celebrated it. And now you speak to me of innocence? No, Zakthorn said. I do not claim innocence. I claim nothing. I only ask you to consider what you are about to do. Your species joined the galaxy believing in peace. You disarmed because you chose to be better than what you were. If you destroy this world, you will be no better than us. You will be worse because you knew better. You chose better, and you will have thrown that away for revenge. It's not revenge, Sarah said. It's justice. Justice for whom? Zackthorn asked. Will killing my people bring back yours? Will it ease your pain? Or will it simply add more bodies to the count? More children who will never grow up? More families destroyed? He leaned forward. I cannot stop you, Admiral. But I beg you to stop yourself. Be the species you claimed to be. Show us the better way. Sarah closed the channel. Her hands were shaking. Around her, the bridge crew waited for orders. They would follow her commands without question. They trusted her. They believed in her. But she was not sure she believed in herself anymore. Admiral, Park said gently, the weapon systems are armed. Waiting for your order. Sarah looked at the planet. 14 billion lives. She thought about the Korath celebrations after New Havana. The way they had laughed. The way the Council had called it lawful. The way no one had cared about the million dead humans. But she also thought about her daughter's face. About the last thing her daughter had said before Sarah left for her research mission. I love you, Mama. Come home soon. Sarah had not kept that promise. She had not been there to protect her. But she could still be the person her daughter had believed she was. The person who believed in peace and science and making the universe better. Open a channel to the Galactic Council, Sarah said. And to Korath Prime, I want everyone to hear this. The channel opened. Faces appeared on the screen. The council members watching with a mixture of fear and hope. Zackthorn waiting for his world's fate. And across the galaxy, billions of beings watching to see what humanity would do. 72 hours ago, we arrived in orbit of Korath Prime, Sarah said. Her voice was steady, but the pain underneath it was clear. We gave them the same warning they gave New Havana. The same deadline. And now that deadline has passed. She paused, looking at the planet. We have the power to destroy this world. We have weapons that could turn Korath Prime into a dead rock. We could kill 14 billion people and tell ourselves it was justice. That they deserved it. That it was payback for what they did to us. But we will not, she continued. Not because the Korath deserve mercy. Not because the Council asks us to show restraint. But because we are better than that. Because we chose peace for a reason. Because adding more bodies to the pile of the dead will not bring back the people we lost. She saw Zackthorn close his eyes in relief. Saw the council members react with surprise and hope. But Sarah was not finished, however. She said, and her voice turned to ice. This comes with conditions. The Galactic Council will be reformed immediately. The concept of elder species priority will be abolished. All species will have equal voice and equal protection under Council law. Any act of genocide, any attack on civilian populations, will be met with immediate and overwhelming military response. Furthermore, Sarah continued, Commander Zackthal and every officer who participated in the New Havana massacre will stand trial. Not in a Korath court, in a human court. They will answer for their crimes. The Korath Empire will pay reparations to the families of the dead for the next 100 years, and New Havana will become a memorial world, protected by treaty and human military presence. No species will ever mine it. No one will ever colonize it. It will remain as a reminder of what happens when the powerful believe they are above justice. She leaned forward. These are not negotiable terms. They are requirements. If the Council refuses, we will withdraw from galactic civilization entirely. We will close our borders, and the next time any species attacks a human world, there will be no warnings, no deadlines, no mercy. We will show you the kind of war that humanity fought in its youth, the kind of war that made us swear never to fight again, and you will learn why we made that promise. The council chamber was silent. Finally, Counselor Vexthrax spoke. The energy being's voice was subdued, respectful in a way it had never been before. Your terms are acceptable, Vexthrax said. We will begin the reformation process immediately. One more thing, Sarah said. I want to speak to Zackthal. Bring him to me. It took 3 days to locate Zackthal. He had gone into hiding when the human fleet appeared, hoping to escape justice. But the Korath government, desperate to appease humanity, hunted him down. They brought him in chains to a neutral station where the human fleet was docked. Sarah stood in the detention area and looked at the Korath commander who had murdered her family. He tried to meet her eyes with defiance, but she saw the fear underneath. He knew he was going to die. You laughed, Sarah said quietly. When Ambassador Chen pleaded for mercy, you laughed. When Captain Vasquez positioned her ships to protect civilians, you called us soft. When you gave the order to fire, you celebrated.
Do you remember?
Zackthal said nothing. I want you to understand something, Sarah continued. We are not soft. We are not weak. We chose peace because we knew the alternative. We knew what we were capable of, and you made us remember. She leaned close. You will stand trial. You will face the families of everyone you killed. You will hear their names. Every single one. All 1,247,891 of them. And then you will spend the rest of your life in a cell thinking about what you did. Just kill me, Zekthal said. It would be more merciful. Mercy? Sarah said. You burned children alive from orbit and you speak to me of mercy? No, you will live. You will remember. Just like we remember. The trial was broadcast across the galaxy. It took 3 months. Every day the names of the dead were read. Family members testified. Images were shown. The full horror of what had happened on New Havana was laid bare for all to see. Zekthal was found guilty of genocide, crimes against sapient beings, and murder. He was sentenced to life imprisonment on a human prison colony. No possibility of parole, no hope of release, just decades of remembering what he had done. The Galactic Council was reformed over the next year. The concept of elder species priority was abolished. Humanity was given a permanent seat among the founding species, not because they were the oldest or most powerful, but because they had shown they could be trusted with power. They had held back when they could have destroyed. They had chosen justice over revenge. 10 years later, a new species petitioned to join the council. They were young, barely spacefaring, full of hope and dreams. The council welcomed them, and every